Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newington Town Council regular meeting of Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. If you would please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, Susan. Would you do the roll call, please?
Yes, Councillor Anist.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Budraco.
Here.
Councillor Camillo. Councillor Donahue.
Here.
Councillor Mankey.
Here.
Councillor Nagel.
Here.
Councillor Page.
Here.
Councillor Rada.
Here.
Mayor Del Buono.
Here. Susan, can you call Councillor Camillo again? I didn't hear him. Is he?
His audio is not connected.
Okay.
Oh, okay, because I do see him on the call. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll just take note when he is able to participate. Next item this evening is approval of the agenda. We do have a few additions.
I have a few additions I'd like to make.
Councilor Mankey?
Under item 8, resignations and appointments, we have 2 resignations and 1 appointment, all 3 for Tom Gill. And under new business, item 11, I like to add 11E, a safer grant.
Okay, so we have items 8A, 8B, and 11E to add.
Second.
Councilor Page, any discussion on these additions?
Could you just repeat, Councilor Mackey, a safer grant? Could you just say that again?
A safer grant, SAFER,
Right.
or a safer grant.
The reason I believe that was requested by the fire department to be added, one of the commissioners had called me and then I deferred him to Mr. Kropinski. They have a timeline that they need to accept the grant by, and so they wanted us to add it.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We have our agenda. Next item this evening is presentations. And we have 3 this evening. The first is a retirement proclamation for Master Police Officer Leroy Feeney. And I will start by reading it into the record. We good?
We are.
Okay.
I moved it along.
Our Zoom and our internet are a little wonky, so I apologize if there's any lag for those that are watching, but we're going to try and keep it going. Okay. Proclamation. Whereas Leroy Feeney was hired as a police officer for the town of Newington on May 22nd, 2006. And whereas Officer Leroy Feeney received the Excellence in Policing Award in September and December of 2007. And whereas Officer Leroy Feeney was appointed to the Mid-State Traffic Reconstruction Team in October of 2008. And whereas in December 2011, Officer Leroy Feeney was awarded Outstanding Performance and Arrest Investigation of the Month. And whereas on April 29th, 2012, Officer Leroy Feeney was transferred to Support Services. And whereas Leroy Feeney was transferred to Detective Division 2-year rotator in October 2012. And whereas on October 26, 2014, Officer Leroy Feeney was transferred to the Patrol Division. And whereas Officer Leroy Feeney transferred to the Detective Division Evidence Technician on January 4th, 2015. And whereas on January 22nd, 2017, Officer Leroy Feeney transferred to the Patrol Division. And whereas on March 31st, 2019, Officer Leroy Feeney was promoted to Master Police Officer. And whereas Master Police Officer Leroy Feeney transferred to the Detective Division in January 2020. And whereas Master Police Officer Feeney received a commendation letter from the state of Connecticut, Chief State's Attorney's Office, Supervisory Inspector Bannon, and another letter of commendation in June of 2008. And whereas in August of 2012, Master Police Officer Leroy Feeney was recognized for proactive patrol enforcement. And whereas Master Police Officer Leroy Feeney received a case officer letter of commendation in February of 2015. And whereas Master Police Officer Leroy Feeney received commendation letters from surrounding police departments, including Weathersfield, East Hampton, and South Windsor, and received various letters and emails of appreciation from residents and citizens. And whereas, after over 16 years of service, Master Police Officer Leroy Feeney will be retiring from the Newington Police Department on April 21st, 2023. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby recognizes and extends its sincere appreciation to Master Police Officer Leroy Feeney for his professional service and dedication to the town, and wishes him the best in his retirement. Dated in Newington, Connecticut, this 25th day of April, 2023, signed Beth Del Buono, Mayor, on behalf of the Town Council. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Rada. I'll open it for discussion, councilors, and I am not in Zoom currently, so if someone else can help me with the participants window. It's keeps bumping me off. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Although I don't think Officer Feeney is on this broadcast, but I'd like to just proclaim that he chose an honorable and a very risky profession, and he dedicated almost 17 years of his life to serving our community. So I want to thank him for his service and the protection that he provided to all of us, and I wish him all the best in his retirement.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bedrejko. Councilor Menke?
I would just offer the same congratulations. 17 years of service to our community is outstanding. I understand it's difficult and stressful work, but I appreciate his efforts on our behalf, and I would just wish him well as retirement.
Thank you, Councilor Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would just also say to Officer Feeney, thank you so much. You and your colleagues are rushing towards danger to keep us safe as we're just trying to get out of the way and stay safe. Thank you very much for your years of service and time away from your family. And we all wish you nothing but the very best. Stay safe. Thank
you, Councilor Page. I would just like to wish my congratulations on your retirement to Officer Feeney, and thank you for all of the whereases that I just had to read. There were many, and that really indicates all of the service that you did. And it shows that you really were willing to move around through the department and serve whatever needs the department had and move up through the ranks. And we greatly appreciate your service to the town. We do have a clock, and for the counselors, you've seen the older style clocks. This is the new style clock that we'll be presenting him with, along with the proclamation. So I just wanted to bring it down for everybody to be able to see. Yes. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I'm getting an error code for Zoom. I took a screenshot. I'll send it to you in a second. And we'll move on with our agenda. So this evening, next on our agenda, we have a presentation by Matthew Hart from CROG. He's the Executive Director of CROG, and I would just welcome you up to the table.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're glad you're here to give us some information and updates.
Very good. Can you hear me okay? All right. Thank you so much for the invitation, Mayor, Town Council, and our acting town manager. Again, my name's Matt Hart. I'm the Executive Director of the Capital Region Council of Governments. I've been in the position a little over a year, and I'm traveling around the region trying to meet with all of our local legislative bodies to talk a little bit about our work, what we do, how we work to serve you, and then to take your suggestions as well. You know, this is a critical time at CROG with federal funding and for other reasons as well. So I've got a bit of a presentation here, not too long. I'll move forward relatively quickly. So in terms of what I'm going to cover this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, some of our current initiatives, what we see as benefits for the town of Newington in particular, and then take any questions or suggestions you might have. So a little bit about councils of governments here in Connecticut. If you're not familiar with them, we're not the same thing as a county. You know, we're different. Connecticut is one of two states that does not have county government, us and the state of Rhode Island. But we do have councils of governments across our state and across our country. We've got 9 here in Connecticut. And really they provide a framework in which municipalities within a particular region can get together and discuss issues of concern and ideally come up with solutions and coordinate the delivery of various federal, state, and local programs. Councils of governments can also function in the role of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO. That's a designation from the Federal Highway Administration. And in our role as the MPO, we administer federal and some state transportation dollars. So a little bit more about CROG. CROG is the largest of the 9 COGs. We serve 38 municipalities, a residential population of approximately 1 million residents, a geographic area of a little over 1,000 square miles. You know, we're good size by Connecticut standards. We go west to the town of Southington, we go east to Willington, and north to Massachusetts in both directions. And we have approximately 30 employees at CROG in 4 departments. So the first one I would mention is our Department of Municipal Services and Administration. This department supports our Municipal Services Committee and our Purchasing Coalition. It conducts various special projects, which I'll touch on a little bit later on, and legislative advocacy. Every year, we prepare a legislative agenda, which is comprised of issues that we think are important to our region. We submit that to the General Assembly, and we do our best to monitor our progress as the session goes on. Our Purchasing Coalition is probably one of the oldest services that we've provided over our roughly 50-year history. And we have over 100 towns that participate in that Purchasing Coalition. And that's where we will do the competitive bidding on your behalf for both commodities, like it can be very basic things like road salt, grass seed, et cetera, as well as services. We've recently issued a variety of RFPs for engineering services, various types of software, et cetera. So that's municipal services. The next department I would highlight is relatively new. We had a consolidated Department of Planning and recently broke it up into 2 departments so that we could pay more attention to some key things. So we now have a regional department of planning and development, which is responsible for supporting our land use and our development community. They do staff our regional planning commission. Our regional planning commission is comprised of representatives from all 38 towns, and they do hear applications that normally relate to projects along town boundaries and town borders. This department administers our brownfields remediation program. We do have a revolving loan program and provide a grant for assessment services. And towns outside of our region can participate in this as well. And we're looking to build out the programs and services we provide to our town planners and our economic development staff. All right, I don't know if the battery is struggling a little bit. Here we go. The next department I wanted to mention is transportation planning. And this is where most of the money is at CROG. On our roughly $8 million budget, about half of it is for transportation planning initiative. And this department supports our transportation committee, which advises the MPO with the administration of federal and state transportation funds. A couple of examples I would highlight is the TIP, or the Transportation Improvement Program. Those are federal dollars, as well as LOTSIP, the Local Transportation Capital Improvement Program, which are state dollars that you can use for various road projects. This department is comprised primarily of planners. We do have 1 engineer. We're looking to hire another. They conduct various planning studies and projects that eventually can become the basis for design and actual construction. And I'll touch on a few examples in a minute or 2. And then last but not least, we have a very small department of public safety and homeland security. And this department supports our Capital Region Emergency Planning Council, CEREPSI, and they also administer federal and state grants for public safety, emergency management, and more recently for public health. And we also staff CAROPA, Crocopa, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, that's the Capital Region Chiefs of Police Association, Crocopa. So your representatives on various CROG boards and committees, our primary governing body is the policy board. It consists of 40 members. So every town has a rep, and then Hartford has 2 additional. So a little bit of weighted representation for the capital city. All the chief elected officials following their election, they're immediately eligible to serve, but you do have the ability to designate an alternate, as the mayor has done here. You've got Councilor Nagel serving on the board, and then the acting town manager is allowed to participate as well. So those are your representatives on our policy board. Our transportation committee, right now that's vacant pending your recruitment of a town engineer. Town planners can also serve on this committee. It is an important one. I would encourage you to keep your eye on that. Because again, that committee advises the MPO on the administration of federal and state transportation dollars. Our regional planning committee, you've got 2 representatives here, Mr. Sobieski, I'm pronouncing that correctly? And Sobieski, excuse me, and Mr. Camillo. Our municipal services committee, this one is important for vetting ideas for new programs and services. It's chaired by Peter Souza, who's the longtime town manager in the town of Windsor. And I would encourage you, once you've appointed a town manager, to work with him or her to appoint someone to this committee. So this is where a lot of our good thinking happens in that committee. And then our Capital Region Emergency Planning Council, Mr. Schroeder, is serving as your representative there. Some of the current initiatives that we're working on, this is a sampling for you. The state has a program, the Regional Performance Incentive Program, or RPIP for short. And under that program, the state provides 3 years of seed monies to establish new regional initiatives. It was created under the Malloy administration, and the Lamont administration has brought it back for the first time. And we recently received 3 awards, about $1.4 million over 3 years to establish regional programs in animal control, assessment, and building inspection. And we will look to supplement the services that our towns have in place. So for example, if you have a need for a building official, perhaps you got a vacancy, perhaps you're going through a particularly busy time, you'll be able to retain our services. Same thing for animal control and assessment. And eventually in the future, if we're successful, some of our very small towns could rely almost exclusively on our services here. Again, looking at the very small communities that we serve, because we are a very diverse region. You know, we've got some rural towns like the town of Ellington, as an example. Most of our members, like your community, are suburban in nature. And then we also serve a couple of cities, New Britain and Hartford in particular. Infrastructure, we're spending a lot of time on infrastructure these days at CROG, and we hired a couple of staff to assist with this. You're probably somewhat familiar with the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is providing over $5 billion in federal funding to the state of Connecticut over a 5-year period. We're now entering the 2nd year of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And there are about 5 to 7 programs that really work for our communities. One in particular I would highlight is the Safe Streets for All, and that you can use to improve road safety. CROG, we did get a planning grant for roughly $1 million to update our regional transportation safety plan. The reason why that is important is in order to be eligible for an implementation grant under Safe Streets for All, like to upgrade an intersection, to put in a crosswalk, et cetera, you've got to be able to link it to a safety plan that you either have at the local level or at the regional level. So you'll be able to utilize our updated plan for any projects coming out of your community. Another example I would highlight is a RAISE grant that we received last year to connect or to build one of the remaining gaps in the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, which runs from New Haven up through Suffield and East Granby to the Massachusetts border. And we've got a gap in our region in the town of Plainville. And we received $16.4 million to help to construct, to design and construct that section of trail and provide a connection from the trail to the CT Fast Track station in the city of New Britain. So that's a pretty neat project. Another project that would be relevant for you and your town planner is a very active participant. We had a meeting earlier today. It's a model project, if you will, related to transit-oriented development, where we're looking at 8 of our communities, and we've hired a consultant to look at 1 or 2 locations in each of the 8 towns where we think transit-oriented development would be most feasible. And we're providing a set of recommendations related to model zoning regulations and related topics. So that's an active project underway right now that you're participating in. And then the last one I would highlight tonight, another important one for our region, is a waste management initiative. So with the closure of the Mira waste to energy plant in the city of Hartford, the vast majority of our 38 communities are hauling their waste to other parts of the country. And your costs have increased significantly for that over the last decade or so, particularly over the last 5 years. So CROG, our members realized that this was going to be a challenge for our communities. We commissioned a project. We retained a couple of consultants with expertise in this area to assist us. They've produced 2 studies, 2 reports, giving us a series of recommendations that we can seek to implement. We do have a solid waste authority here in our region, the Central Connecticut Solid Waste Authority. It is comprised of 14 members. You're not a member at present, but at some point in the future, if you're interested, you could look to join that organization. And we held a meeting of that authority earlier this week, and our consultant team presented their recommendations to them. And with that authority, we're looking to do more in terms of lowering the costs for municipalities by working to remove organics from the waste stream. What more can we do with recycling? How can we competitively bid waste management contracts as a region and capture an economy of scale? So that's something I would encourage you to keep your eye on as well. So that's a sampling of some of our current initiatives. Looking at the town of Newington more specifically, this is a benefit statement that we produced. It's a 5-year snapshot. It's our assessment of your return on investment. This might be a little bit hard to read. I do have some hard copies, but our assessment over a 5-year period, what you paid for dues over that 5 years, approximately $118,000, with a return on investment of approximately $3.1 million. And we break those benefits up into various categories. The most significant direct benefit to the town of Newington during this time frame was a LOTSIP project. And I believe there was a little bit of a typo here for Robbins Avenue. And is it Maple Hill?
Yeah.
Maple Hill, that project. And as I understand, I checked in earlier today, actually the benefit for that, because you're further along with the project, has increased from 2 to 3.3 million.
Oh.
So that's just a testament, over our best assessment over a 5-year period. And we'll produce another one of these this coming summer. Some highlights from the last fiscal year, and we're going to be holding an annual meeting in June at Riverfront Recapture's boathouse. If the flooding has subsided by then, was planning to attend. They were planning to hold a board meeting at the boathouse later this week, and they can't do it. It's going to be all virtual with the funding. But anyhow, you'll get an invite to our annual meeting if you're available and interested in attending. Some highlights from the last year, looking at public safety We've administered these grants, this Homeland Security one for 19 years now. And more recently, we've been supporting our public health departments and regional health districts. This particular fiscal year, we directed over $44 million in transportation funding, both state and federal, and that number is going to jump significantly higher for the current fiscal year. We conducted various planning studies, just a couple of examples here. We did a benefits assessment of the Hartford line, to help demonstrate the need or the value for the state in terms of additional investment in that line. And Connecticut DOT is making very good progress in that regard. And we initiated, I apologize for the typo there, this transit-oriented development analysis that I talked about earlier. Our purchasing coalition during that particular fiscal year saved our members almost $2 million. And Easy IQC, which is a program that we have in place for small to mid-size municipal construction projects, generated over $1 million in purchase orders during FY22. So that's my short presentation. Hopefully it was helpful for you. Happy to take any questions you might have, as well as any suggestions you might have for improvement. And Councilor Nagel has been involved with CROG for a good long time. I'm sure he can add his perspective as well.
Thank you. Councilor Rada?
Yes, thank you very much. This is tremendously helpful and informative. You said you had some copies. Would this be available for us at some point?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The question I have, and you touched on it when you were talking about solid waste, any plans, if so, what planning for composting throughout the region?
Yes, so that's one of the services that we'd like to offer through the Solid Waste Authority. Again, if we can capture an economy of scale. Because right now, it's not economically feasible for our towns that have looked at it for residential pickup. So the communities that have implemented it in other parts of the country, and I think there are a few examples here in our state, the homeowner has to bring their compost to a drop-off facility. Commercial pickup is a little bit more viable, because you've got more waste produced there. But that is something that we're very interested in, and it relates to an organics initiative as we work to remove organics from the waste stream. So that is something the authority, I think, will be very focused on over the next couple of years.
Right now, I do some composting at home, but I also pay through an organization or a small business that travels throughout the region, and
Yes.
go pick up my bucket once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever. But it would be really nice to see something more local and then more regional.
Yes. So we want to be able to work with our local providers too. And I'm familiar with one, Blue Earth, that provides a
Yes.
good service, and there are others in the region too.
Great. You all set,
Thank you.
Councilor?
Yes, thank you very much.
Councilor Page?
Thanks, Mary. I was going to ask a similar question, but it was about recycling. Can you just say a few more words about what more we can be doing as a town and in collaboration with the region to either, both improve efficiency and reduce cost, ideally, in the service of a better planet? And so
Sure. Well, I'm not familiar with the specifics of your program here in town, but I would encourage you all to get involved with our initiative if you're not already. And a lot of it relates to education, the most successful communities. Because a lot of what happens, and this has increased over the last 5 years or so as markets have tightened, wish recycling. That's the term we use. The homeowner, the business owner, thinks that something's recyclable, but in fact it's not. And it ends up contaminating the recycling stream. I'm assuming you use single stream here, right? So if homeowners are contaminating the stream, that negatively impacts the community. So education is key. Education is first and foremost, and that's a constant effort. And trying to do that across a variety of media, including social media. Many communities, and again, I'm not familiar with the specifics of your program here in town, but many communities are utilizing social media for that purpose, producing short TikTok videos and other things around recycling education.
Thank you.
Sure.
I know our EQC has focused on that a little bit, at least in discussions, and I know Patty Foley, that was really her, she came to us years ago even, talking about the composting and wanting to do it, having us, but as you mentioned, home-to-home pickup was just not, quite frankly, cost feasible, so it never kind of went anywhere in that regard on a bigger scale, but it is something that has been brought to us by her and other residents that certainly would benefit and be looking for that. So that's a good thing to hear, that the initiative is at least kind of underway and starting, and we can try and get involved with that. Deputy Mayor Boudreaux?
Yeah, I have a few questions. First on how you're funded. First of all, is membership mandatory for community? Because it seems like that there's 8 or 9 CROGs. And are the dues calculated on per capita? How are the dues formulated for a member town? And do the dues cover all your services or just basic membership? And then if we want to participate in the, purchasing agreement or some of these other initiatives, is there an additional charge on top of that?
Sure. So let me work through those. So first of all, membership within the COG is voluntary. However, the MPO, every community is assigned to an MPO within the region. And in Connecticut, 7 of our 9 COGs also double as the MPO. So it makes sense if you're in that MPO to also be a member of the COG. There are in other states, the MPOs are separate from the COGs, but that's not the model here in Connecticut. Our dues, we've got, I think it's a base, and I'll verify this and pass it on to James. It's a base amount of $3,000 and then a per capita of roughly 60 cents on top of that. Dues constitute only about 8 to 10% at most of our budget. The vast majority of our funding is federal highway monies. And we have not had to increase our due structure for several years. And we're not recommending it for next fiscal year either. Some of our communities have seen some slight changes based on the 2020 census, but our due structure has been flat for several years now. And then your other question. So in terms of a la carte services, Deputy Mayor, we typically, there isn't anything additional you would have to pay into for utilizing our bidding services. If you were to purchase something, then you would pay the fee there. The same thing with that Easy IQC program. Mm-hmm. Now, the RPIP initiatives that I talked about, where we're going to be providing the 3 regional programs, all of the participating towns will pay separately for that.
And I just have one more question too. I think I see the difference, but could you just comment on the difference between CCM and CROG?
Sure. So CCM is the state's municipal league, and I believe all 50 states have one. And that is a member association. CCM is formed as a nonprofit, and its mission is to support its member communities in a variety of ways, in particular, legislative advocacy. Councils of governments, we are formed under state statute. We're formed pursuant to state statute, and we're a vehicle where municipalities can come together and work as on regional initiatives. One way I like to describe it is we're there to convene the conversation and ideally to be a catalyst for a solution as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Basically, I'd like to thank you for being here this evening. I am the person who has, during liaison and appointments, other kinds of things, been appointed to share information relative to Newington. A lot of the information you've been given has kind of given an overview to it, hopefully has informed people who are wondering at times what specifically I may be talking about or not, so that you understand the importance of this organization and what its function happens to be. Specifically about waste management. Many years ago, Newington opted to go to another service because at the time it seemed to be more economical for us, and hauling was closer at that time. So that's a discussion that the council may have if indeed at some point we feel we want to move in another direction. It had nothing to do with the viability of CROG or not. It just financially for us made a better point. So once again, thank you for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow on Zoom. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you very much. I will tell you that Councilor Nagel gives very detailed reports of what's going on at CROG when he updates us. Jim? Yeah.
Mr. Hart and I met about a month and a half back. And actually last Wednesday, I was actually on a discussion with them regarding the regionalization of ACOs and that grant program.
good.
So Weathersfield as well as Rocky Hill, we're having that conversation right now. And my town planner, he actually will be on the Safer Streets presentation tomorrow as well. So we're very involved with it.
I heard that ACO. My ear kind of went.
Yep, we're
I know
looking
we're
at
looking
the
at that now.
possibility of
Yep.
2 and making it a regional position so that we've got more coverage throughout the region.
Well, that means I've got to be on my best behavior because you're going to be there, James.
All right, you can keep an eye on each other. How's that? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Did actually have the flyer from before. Actually, I supplied that in your drive.
Yes, yes. All right, we will move on now to our presentation update on vandalism in the parks. And I know we have our Superintendent of Parks and Rec, Bill DeMayo, with us this evening. Welcome, Bill. Oh, Bill, you're muted. Are we able to unmute him from our end?
But he's still got to accept it. There we go. There's Bill.
Yep, sorry about that. In the first screen, it's not screen reader friendly. I'm using some software. So now, once you hit unmute, it did come out, then it came on my screen. It was talking to me. So thank you.
Well, unfortunately, we have not a great topic before us tonight, but looking forward to at least hearing the details from you.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council and Acting Town Manager. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. It is a very frustrating topic for us at the Parks and Recreation Department. And we talked with James and made a conscious decision, should we go out and tell the public what's going on or should we not? And we made the decision to do it for one main reason, and that was the council knows what's going on. We've given them written reports, and they are they're understanding the amount of vandalism that we're facing. But the idea here tonight, hopefully, is for all the people that are watching this town council meeting, that they're informed, and we're strongly requesting them to identify vandals in the town of Newington and to either videotape them, call 911 right away, call the regular routine police number, or identify license plates of cars, colors of cars and trucks and motorcycles, or what the people look like to easily identify them, and then call the police immediately while it's going on. So it gives our police department an opportunity to catch these people. So what's happening is a variety of things, as many of you seen in the newspaper and in my reports, is that, our sports complexes, our sports turf fields are being run over by ATM machines, Jeeps, pickup trucks, cars, motorcycles, mini bikes. We have a variety of vandalism at the portable toilets that we put out in every single facility for residents to have the ability to go to the bathroom during during sporting events, practices and games and all the schools and all the parks. We're having tough time with spray paint. We're having tough time with outdoor exercise equipment, playgrounds, etc. And it's expensive, and it's becoming a time suck, as well as a budget costs. And it's very, very hard to predict, and it's very hard to budget for, and it's very hard to deal with. I commend our Parks and Recreation staff for a yeoman's job. They go out every single day and night. I want to commend the Newington Police Department. I've been working with Lieutenant Jameson, Chief of Police, Steve Clark, and the detectives, and we're trying to do the best we can. I want to commend Cedar Mountain Mulch and Stone and Mulch up at on the mountain. Somebody smashed the planter at the Rotary Pavilion at Churchill, and the brick colors aren't available anymore. These 18 by 12-inch bricks, and Cedar Mountain went ahead and because they heard about the vandalism, forged new stones for us that matched as close as possible, and they did it all for free. So we appreciate that. We've already received a resident that took video of two kids smashing a picnic table in one of the parks. We handed it over to the police, and they made an arrest. We got restitution instead. We dropped the charges once the parents paid for it. We've got the police department are after some people that have spray painted the exercise equipment and matched up some of the writing that took place, and made some arrests there. So there's some good things that are happening. We also purchased some cameras from they're low end cameras, but we're temporarily installing them in high vandalized areas. So we want the public to know we are looking at them. We're checking it out. The police department are checking it out, and we're also now get residents that are helping us report this vandalism. And I think if we work together as a town, as a group, a team, I think we'll be able to minimize what's going on. So that's pretty much my summary. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. And thank you to you and your staff for what you're dealing with right now, because I know it does take a lot of man hours. I mean, I see your crews over at the park across from my house all the time, just doing their regular stuff. And I know how long that takes. So I can't imagine dealing with all this extra stuff.
Mayor, if you can, keep your eyes open. There's someone that cut 12 locks from Badger Field on us. So they live.
You're kidding.
They bring their dog in there to run, and we put a lock on that because we want to keep it clean for the Little League. And I know Jim Traumer's really frustrated by it because the kids are playing in feces of the dogs. So
right.
They've cut about 12 locks. So we're on it. That person's going to get caught eventually.
Well, I don't know when that happened, but I was across there probably about 2 weeks ago now, because we'll take our dogs, not on the field, but we take them for walks, and we'll run them through the parking lot. They like to run around a bit. And right. I was actually impressed. The field was locked up, and I saw a pickup game in the parking lot because folks couldn't get into the field. So they were playing like a quick pickup game in the parking lot. So I don't know when that happened, but I know it was locked up. So yeah.
Good. Excellent.
And I enjoy the red porta potties. It reminds me of like a London fire booth. I mean, phone booth. I look across the street and I'm like, that looks like a phone booth. But I'm wondering.
A brand new company. Yep, that's a brand new company.
I was thinking the red might draw attention too. Like, I don't know. To me, they stand out a whole lot more. So in terms of somebody bothering them with them, or maybe it would draw some attention to the color. I don't know. But
yeah.
All right, we do have a couple hands up. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions actually, Bill. First of all, do you have, either for this fiscal year or whatever, what an estimate of the damages of the costs is, and not just in terms of replacing fences or, rewriting porta potties, but the labor that it's taking to, repair all this? And has anybody done an estimate of?
Not really, Councilwoman. It's definitely weekly. It's almost daily. So I would suspect that we spend a couple hours a day in repairing things that are broken.
Okay, then, I'm a little concerned when I see, on Facebook, oh, kids being kids, blah, 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 blah. A lot of these are, to me, is vicious and premeditated, actually. Takes some planning and some organization. So what is the punishment or fine or whatever, other than having the parents pay, pay for the damages? Is there any kind of, make the kids work to fix this stuff? I mean, is there any kind of thought of more involved restitution rather than the parents paying money?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not an expert on the police side of things, but we do press charges. And I know, parents have been very upset with me for, calling me a hard guy, but I think we've met our tipping point. And if we don't prosecute or move forward to go to the court system, and there's all kinds of juvenile stuff that they can do, restitution and things like that. But we're certainly willing to drop those if the parents pay. I can address it's easy to say, why don't we have the kids go and clean the painted materials themselves? But what happens, it really is non-productive for us because, one, we have to provide the tools and the materials to do it. And then we also have to provide supervision, which we don't have the time. We don't have the resources to babysit and to hold people's hands, meet them after school at 3:30 when our guys already leave. So it seems like a good idea to most people and parents and things, but it's not really practical for us. We don't have a program like that. In some of the cities, I know New Britain and Hartford, they have full crews of 12 adults that are paid to go around and do things like that. And that's a difficult, we're not anywhere near that situation.
Okay, thanks. And then just one more comment. It says, you invested in a few like low-end mobile cameras and, temporarily installing them. Unfortunately, it seems like we might have to, from a budgeting perspective, give you a little bit more funds for surveillance. I mean, I don't know if it's going to go away. I don't really think it's temporary, seeing what's going on around the state.
Right.
And the
I'm thankful for that thinking, but I would probably direct that money towards Chief Clark, because they have a system coming that's really high-end, sophisticated, and they've been so cooperative, and we work so closely together. Every day we're on the phone with them, one officer or another. So that would be a great time at next year's budget. You can talk to the chief. He can, and I think he's still getting his stuff in, and they're getting trained on it. And they certainly have offered those services to us in the future. So I think we're going to get better at it as technology gets cheaper and information gets more abundant to us. We're going to do well with that. I think that's happening. Let me make an announcement too. People think that they can dump their personal garbage in our dumpsters. That is not legal. We pay for those dumpsters for particular reasons, either businesses downtown in the municipal parking lot or at different, parks, so that we can make it easier for us to clean up and make it more efficient. They cannot dump their mattresses, their stoves, their grills. None of that stuff can be dumped in the dumpsters. That's illegal. And I just want to make sure I take the opportunity to inform our residents.
Great, thank you, Bill. And you and your staff do such a fine job. I mean, we are proud of our parks and here in Newington, and it's really saddening that we have to even be talking about this, but thank you for this update.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback on one of your questions, Gail, the idea of like the community service piece, which I understand what you're saying, Bill. It doesn't make sense to necessarily have the young folk helping our crews with those issues, but we do have the juvenile review board in town. So for certain offenses, the police department has the option, if it's a first offense, for certain charges, and depends on the severity and all that. I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of that piece, but the department does have the option to refer to that juvenile review board. So while they may not be able to then help Parks and Rec directly, they could be assigned through that process some kind of community service, which may be kind of what you're talking about, that idea of them having to somehow take some ownership of the situation instead of just having a parent pay the cost, which is unfortunate for the parent and doesn't always help the, the child kind of learn the lesson. So just a
Yeah.
thought, Bill, as you talk
Totally
to the police
agree.
department, that might be, something to work on. Counselor Page?
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, this is super discouraging, Bill. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. And, vandalism has been around since the dawn of time, but it seems like, and I don't know if you have any data on, has it spiked since and by the way, I also want to say, I think we all agree that 99% of our kids and our families are amazing and are constructive and productive and love our town and wouldn't do this. I want to believe it's a very small percentage of kids, but is there a sense of why it's spiked? Has it been the pandemic? Has it been other issues going on? Or is it not a spike? You're just bringing it to our attention?
I don't think it's as much as a spike as I'm bringing it to your attention. And
Okay.
that I think what's happening, Councilman, is that budget dollars are shrinking, and we're so tight to the vest that this hurts us because we try to spend every nickel in a positive way. And what we're experiencing is we're having to spend our budget money on negativity. And I think
Right.
that's what's frustrating our staff the most.
And I would just add, and I'm done, is just this kind of presentation and I don't want to speak obviously for the schools, but encouraging whatever communication. They're asked to do everything, I get it, but to let our kids know how much we love our parks and to honor them and respect them, but also social services, and just to continue to reach out to families and say, please work with us to, have our kids show respect and let's reduce this, minimize it to as close to zero as we can. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Yep, that's the game plan. That's why I think James and I made an effort to bring this to your attention, is we want to get the word out in a positive way to the residents. Hey, help us out here. All eyes on this stuff, and let's put an end to it.
Yep, thanks.
Counselor Mackey?
I just, again, thanking you for your efforts to put this together for us. I just had a question about throughout the town, legal tree removal and encroachment on town property. Can you just elaborate on that a little more?
I can. This is very discouraging also. I think Gary Furstenberg, before he left, identified like 100 homeowners that have encroached on public lands. And it happens all over town. And people take advantage of, like at Elizabeth Green, they extend their backyards, by 70 feet, and they put in, their boat is there, their shed is there, they have a picnic table, so they extend their backyards. You see it at Emmanuel Christian Academy, you see it at Eagle Park. People take down, thousands of dollars worth of trees that are park trees or school trees or cemetery trees. And that's discouraging too. And it is very, very difficult. And, it's just one of those things that takes place. People cut down fences and they open up park fences and dump their clippings from their backyard into the park so that our guys can come and clean it up. It's tough. It's a tough situation.
Thank you. I guess the watchword here is that if the public sees something, they should report it, not just assume it's a one-time thing, or it's only kids, or it's only a little part of the park. But if we continue this trend, we're going to end up with crappy-looking parks, and none of us want that. So I think the public, if they can be advised to just keep their eyes on, especially if those who live near parks, who happen to be near a park and happen to hear a car that's not supposed to be on that field, they can go out and take we all have our phones now. They can go out and take a video of it or a picture of it. And we all in town here have a duty to help your staff and the police maintain our parks.
Right. And thank you. I appreciate that. And the takeaway tonight too is that myself and our entire Parks and Rec team is totally committed to keeping, as I put in the report, we're going to make the parks beautiful, safe, enjoyable, and do the best we possibly can. And if we have to, spend extra time and extra money to do so, we're going to do that, because Newington was always, have always been blessed with beautiful park system, and it's our responsibility to be stewards of it.
Thank you, Bill. I think there's one more hand up. Counselor Donahue?
And this, Bill, this may be your question, maybe some, and people who are encroaching on town land, does that become a zoning enforcement issue?
It does. We've brought a few of them to the town attorney. He hasn't moved forward on them as of yet. We are looking to readdress that once we have our town engineer on board.
Okay, thank you.
And additionally, to the question on cameras in the parks, that actually is part of an initiative that we are looking at as part of the broadband that we approved under ARPA, tying in all of our town facilities. So parks would be included in that. We'd be looking to make sure that our facilities are monitored properly. So we should hopefully see that over the next couple of years as part of that project.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Are you staying on with us for that one that's coming up later or no?
Yes, yeah, I've got a couple more, the paint machine and some in the field turf.
All right, okay. All right, we're gonna move on to public participation, then we'll get into the rest of the agenda. Thank you. All right, next item this evening is public participation. Any member of the public may come forward, either in the room or on Zoom. If you are on Zoom, we just would say, raise your hand in the participants window to let us know that you want to be recognized. And we do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record. Anyone in the room is welcome to come forward as well. And my attendees window is empty, so if anybody can see, it says there's 3 people, but I can't see them, so. Welcome, Mr. Teller. Thank you.
There's 2 people.
Boy, I didn't sit down to start the time. Well, sorry about that. James, I'm sorry. Can't stop the time, huh, Beth? You're just
I'm
gonna.
not in charge of the time clock, sir. I don't have it in front of me.
The budget. Last week I was here and I was talking to Michael J. Fox outside. It was just way too much information, too much. I remember Rose Lyons calling up and saying it's just too much information. And I had a headache. I left. I was going to say something the week of the budget. I had a headache. I went home. I didn't want to hear anymore because it was just, I'm taking notes. I got notes from, and I was trying to like put it all together and make sense of the budget. But if there's a way, and I know that, I think Councilor Page mentioned of maybe giving the people some information ahead of time just so we can get a little taste of what's going on. There's a lot of stuff that I wrote down right forever. I started taking pictures and like I said, Michael J. Fox, he left. He said he had it. He was, we were outside talking in the hallway. And it was just a lot of much information, but I don't know who can answer this question. The Citgo gas station behind there is, I'm through with the budget, but just if we could work on that budget, spread it out a little bit. Give us 71-year-old people a break. But anyway, Citgo owns the land behind there and they cut down 24 trees. That's how many stumps I counted anyway. And if somebody could really answer this question for me, couldn't we have, did somebody know about it ahead of time? James, I don't know, could you help me out with this?
We typically respond to the public afterward. We'll take
Okay.
all your questions, then
Okay.
we'll respond.
Well, I just want, okay, because I was hoping that somebody would have known ahead of time, or Citgo would have told town of Newington that we're gonna cut down all these, it's our land, we're gonna cut down the trees. And it's, well, I live here and I respect nature. God gave us this beautiful planet. And it truly is a gift from God, whether anybody believes in God or not, that's my opinion. And I counted 24 stumps and I gave up after that. It was just, but my question is, and I'm running out of time, is that did Citgo let the town know they were going to cut down all these trees? Did we have an option of saying, look, why don't we, the town say, why don't we buy the land, sell it to a developer who, I don't know how many acres that is, 1 acre, 2 acres, buy the land and the town buy the land, okay? And hire a developer that would, that's what I'm looking for. You make an agreement that if he puts up like a house or two or a building, that he leaves some of the trees standing. Because, you know, I realize Citgo owns the land, but my question was, did you guys know about it ahead of time? Did anybody know about it ahead of time? And could we have done that? Bought the land and told the developer, this is what we want you to do, leave some trees standing, because I feel bad for people on Brockett Street and Kitts Lane. I would be pissed if I lived over there. One day you got a lot of trees and it's beautiful, okay, I understand it's their land, I get it, but those are the questions I want to answer, because I was just pissed when I drove by there from the Citgo station. I found out, I think it was, Gail, you had mentioned it recently that it was Citgo owned the land. That's how I found out from taking notes from you. And that's what all this came about with my concern with the trees and the property, that we could have done something ahead of time. That's it.
Thank you. I just want to double check online. Is there nobody with their hand up?
Anyway.
It's so weird. I have the attendees window. It says there's 3 people, but there's no people in my
Yeah,
attendees.
it's-
Click the
That's weird.
participants for a second.
I have participants.
No, I know. Click it and then click back to attendees. Still no, huh?
No, it's really weird.
Have you closed the window and reopened it?
Yeah, and when that happened earlier, it booted me off Zoom, so I'm just waiting.
Yeah, don't do
Get
that.
booted off.
I'll let you know.
Don't do the upper X.
Yeah, I do not see any other members of the public either in the room or on Zoom, so we will move on to, there were no email correspondence as far as I'm
No.
aware.
Nothing for publication.
And then remarks by counselors on public participation. So, Mr. Taylor did pose a question about Citgo, and I know we all asked that question because I live right near there. I drove by and I was shocked to see the lot cleared and read about it all over Facebook. It was a big issue, and we did ask that question, and we were told from our perspective as a council that it is privately owned. They can do what they want with the land as long as they're in compliance with zoning regs. And I don't believe they violated any zoning regulations.
No, it was a bit of surprise for the
Yeah.
planning department, but yeah, nothing was violated with it. They are planning on marketing the site for development on it. Hopefully during that site plan review, we'll be able to have more controls over that. You know, we are getting the lighting from the Citgo station going into the neighborhoods themselves. So that is causing issues, but they are working towards that right now. And that will be part of the site plan when I spoke with the town planner.
Okay. In terms of I know part 2 of the question was about the town purchasing the land. We don't typically purchase land for the purpose of development. I mean, if someone came to us and said, hey, I'm looking to sell this, I think it would benefit the town in this way, then we might consider it, but we don't typically have funds available for that, and we would set funds aside if we knew that was coming forward or something, but it's not often done unless there's a real specific reason for us to take it for the town's purposes, but not to develop. So that's not something we've ever done, and I don't necessarily think we would want to get into that business, but I
Usually an
understand the
under-
thought process behind it for sure.
Usually an underlying reason. Good example would be national welding, brownfield site, cleanup, funding available, something that we took on for that specific reason. The ironic part about that site is, although it looks like it is in part of the residential neighborhood, it's actually the Berlin Turnpike zone. So it's actually not a residential lot even.
So, so it's zoned for business, right? So it
Yeah,
doesn't
zoned for
fit the
business.
same.
That's the one unusual piece of it, as closely as it fronts to the actual neighborhood. It's
It's
actually,
zoned
yeah,
commercial.
correct, in a
Right
way.
there too.
Berlin Turnpike zone, but yeah, same idea.
Visio. Yeah.
Yep.
Counselor Menke?
Just as an aside, in the years I've lived in town here, which is considerable, I've seen more trees taken down in the last year and a half or 2 years than ever before. It seems like we have this vendetta against big trees, and we're chopping them down left and right. Wherever you go, there's a pile of wood here and a pile of wood there, or you can hear the chainsaws in the morning. I understand, you know, people own the land and they can do with what their trees as they wish, but I wish we'd leave some of those trees just because they've taken years to grow, and some of them are you know, are landmarks, even though they may be on someone's property, but
Yeah.
But I also understand people have the right to do what they want with their property. If they want to take the tree down, they have the right to take the tree down. And if I want to take a tree down in my house, I guess I would have that same mentality, but just wish we'd leave a couple of trees standing, but they're coming down left and right, so.
Any other council comment? Okay. We'll continue on to consideration of old business. And this evening, we have before us the bid waiver for Parks and Grounds line striping machine. Councilors, as you know, we discussed this at our last meeting, and essentially the reason for the ask of the bid waiver is that there is but one provider for this type of machine. But Bill, I'll let you speak more to this.
Sure, it's just the robotic paint machine. It's one of a kind. We had it demonstrated in front of all our park guys at Newington High School soccer fields and lacrosse fields. And it looks like a great opportunity for us to be more economic about how we paint fields and how we do it year after year. And one of the interesting, it's all GPS run and it will save staff time. But the very interesting part of it was that if we want to save goal miles, for instance, with the 4 fields at the high school, oftentimes in our profession, what we do is we move a field 6 feet or 10 feet left or right. And that takes a whole bunch of time to re-measure everything and get everything specifically perfect for the corner kicks and the circles and et cetera. This, you just push a button, it says move it over 6 feet, move it over 8 feet, boom, and it's done. So
Wow.
it's going to be fascinating. And when it comes to youth soccer, when they have the 13 soccer fields for Father's Day weekend for that tournament for 110 teams, it's just going to be year after year. We're going to have it programmed into the machine, and it just bangs all the fields out. We don't have to measure them. So it's going to help with lacrosse, soccer, football, softball, baseball. It's going to be a home run for us.
And
So thank you.
just for everybody's information, I believe it says it in the resolution, the cost of the machine is $45,000. The money is already there and appropriated.
Yes.
But we need to allow for the bid waiver, should we choose to tonight, because there is only one vendor in the state of Connecticut that offers this type of machine. So instead of spending the time to go out to RFP and trying to get bids on something that we already know there's only one vendor available for, it would make sense for us to go ahead and waive that process.
Right. And Janet has all the documentation in writing proving it. So that's good.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So councilors, we do have the resolution in the packet. Let's read that in and then we'll entertain questions. How's that? Who would like to read it? You want to do it?
Sure.
Sure, Counselor Page.
Resolved, whereas the town council has the power under section 814 of the Newington Charter to waive the process of procuring sealed bids. And whereas town personnel have determined that the robotic line striping machine is a sole source product supplied by Swazi SWOZI and distributed exclusively by Turf Robotics of Hartford, Connecticut. And now therefore be it resolved that the town council hereby grants a waiver as requested by William DeMeo, Superintendent of Parks and Grounds, for the requirement of sealed bids for the purchase of a robotic line painting machine from Turf Robotics with an estimated cost of $45,000. And now now therefore be it further resolved, the town council grants a waiver as requested by William DeMeo, Superintendent of Parks and Grounds, for the requirement of sealed bids for the purchase of a robotic line painting machine from Turf Robotics with an estimated cost of $45,000. Now be it resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby grants the bid waiver to William DeMeo, Superintendent of Parks and Grounds, for the requirement of sealed bids for the purchase of a robotic line striping machine from Turf Robotics of Hartford, Connecticut.
Second. Second by Counselor Nagel. All right. Second by Counselor Nagel, and then we'll open it for discussion. Counselor Donahue?
Yeah, Bill, I assume this machine is not something somebody can run up and throw in the trunk of their car, and it has some kind of tracking on it. I mean, with, I'm not saying, I've seen the robot at Stop and Shop get out the front door, so.
Yeah, it's fairly large. It's probably 5 feet by 5 feet. It goes on the back of a pickup truck kind of thing. So it will always be with one of our park guys who will operate the machine.
All right.
Okay. Counselor Mankey?
Yeah, I just noticed that the second and third paragraphs or sections are both identical. Could we amend the motion to take out one of those paragraphs?
Paragraph 4.
Paragraph.
Now therefore.
The second, now therefore.
I thought it sounded redundant, but I didn't quite.
Me too.
Yeah.
What happens? That happens when you type at 11:30 at night.
Yeah. Counselor Page, would you amend your motion to take out that extra paragraph?
Oh, no, I want further discussion on it. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, please amend that to remove the third paragraph, which appears to be redundant.
And would you amend your second, Counselor
I
Nagel?
will.
Thank you.
Or fourth paragraph, apologize, yeah.
Fourth
The
paragraph.
redundant paragraph, thank you.
All right. So it has been amended. Any other council comment or question on this item?
Must be good to be that one vendor.
Yeah,
Right?
I know.
Really? All right. Hearing no more questions or comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
I'd just like to see this thing in action, Bill.
It's fascinating to just see it do a circle in the middle of the field and meet the other end of the line. And on top of it, the thing is so smart that it doesn't go over any of the lines that are still wet. It goes to the other part of the field. It's incredible. Absolutely
Amazing.
incredible.
We could do a show and tell a Badger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Don't get any
Thank you,
best
everyone.
after.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, folks, next item this evening is the AFSCME wage reopener fiscal year 2023-2024 agreement. This was talked about at last meeting, but we have before us this evening a motion to approve this. So James, do you want to give us a quick outline of this? Since you worked pretty hard on this, I know.
This was the easy one, believe it or not. Yeah, we met a couple of times regarding the wage reopener. This was one of those unusual contracts where fourth year, we decided the administration as well as the union decided they'd like a fourth year look back just to see where we were at going into COVID, because their original contract, although it started in July 2020, wasn't signed until June of 2021. So we all knew we were in the middle of COVID at that time. So we met over a couple of times, met with a moderator, and by the end of it, we both came to an agreement on a 3% general wage increase in the last year of that contract. So that is what is before you this evening.
Great. All right, we'll go ahead and read the motion in. Who would like to read that for us? Councilor Nagel?
Whereas AFSCME Local 2930 membership ratified the proposed amendment to the July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2024 collective bargaining agreement regarding the year 4 wage reopener on Saturday, March 25th, 2023 by accepting a 3% general wage increase for the fiscal year 2023 through 2024. And whereas after said ratification by the membership, the amendment to the current collective bargaining agreement would be considered for town council approval. Now therefore be it resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby approves the amendment to the AFSCME Local 2930 collective bargaining agreement for the July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2024 regarding the year 4 wage reopener by accepting a 3% general wage increase for fiscal year 2023 through 2024.
Second.
Second by Councilor Donahue. Any other questions or comments, councilors?
I'm just thankful, James, for your work on this, but also thank our employees for the hard work they do, and you know, with inflation and all, I'm sure they appreciate this, so thank you.
Wasn't only me, Janet, my staff in my office as well.
And all of your
Worked
staff.
very hard on it.
Thank you all very much.
Councilor Minky?
Yeah, this appears to be a win-win for everyone, so I applaud everybody for working together and getting this done.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is the ordinance adoption for municipal option to exempt certain motor vehicles. As you remember, we did have a public hearing. Sorry, I just cut myself. On a previous meeting on the 18th to receive comments or input from the public. I don't believe anybody weighed in at that meeting from what my recollection is.
No, they didn't.
But we have discussed this at a few council meetings. We've had several discussions on this one to modify language and make sure we had it the way we needed it. So we have for us a resolution. And Deputy Mayor Pacheco, would you?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby approves the amendment to the Newington Code of Ordinances, Chapter 388, Taxation, Article 5, Municipal Option to exempt certain motor vehicles, FKA ambulance type motor vehicles exemption. A copy of this ordinance shall be attached to this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Menke. I will say that just for those watching, that the primary purpose of the ordinances, I think both of them that are on this evening, coming forward again, was more so to update them to meet the current general statutes and make sure that the way they're written, they will kind of update as time goes on with the statute. If the statute updates Well, not on this one particularly. This one was to include language that we hadn't had in our previous one.
Correct.
So this particular one was that the statute at the state level had been updated, but we had not updated our ordinance to meet that. So this would include all that the state had incorporated into it or offered the municipality to incorporate. All right, any questions or comments, counselors? Okay. I will abstain on voting just because I think there may be someone in my family that takes advantage of this, so I would choose to abstain from it. So I'll just say that ahead of time. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One abstention. Motion passes 8 affirmative, 1 abstention. Next item is the ordinance adoption for tax relief program for certain homeowners age 65 or over and permanently or totally disabled. So again, this is one that we've talked about and have had an opportunity to weigh in on the language to make sure that it is meeting the needs of the residents as well as this general statute. Our town attorney did review these prior as well, just to mention that because I forgot to do that on the last one. And we do have the resolution in the packet. Who would like to do that one?
I'll read it in.
Counselor Retta?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby approves the amendment to the Newington Code of Ordinances, Chapter 388, Taxation, Article 9, Tax Relief Program for certain homeowners age 65 and over and permanently or totally disabled. A copy of the ordinance shall be attached to this resolution.
Second.
Second by Counselor Annis.
I yield.
Any discussion on this one? I know we've already discussed a number of times, but any other questions or comments? Counselor
I
Page?
would just thank, I'm sorry, I'm blocking on her name, who helped us.
Seller.
Thank you very much, Ms. Seller, for walking us through this. For those of us like me, who was ignorant to a lot of the details, I appreciate all the help. Thank you.
Any other comment or question? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is an item that we've asked to be added to each agenda, just to get a quick update on the town manager search. Counselor Menke?
Yeah, I just can report that the council has reviewed a number of applications. We've narrowed it down to 5 people we will do preliminary interviews with in the next week, I guess, sometime next week. And then from there, we'll narrow that search down further until to 3 or 4 or whatever we decided to go from there. And then we'll probably do, with those people, we'll probably do in-person interviews and just to report the process is moving along. And we hope to continue that progress.
Okay, thank you. Any council comment or question? Next item is, I think we added a couple here under resignations and appointments. The first one is resignation for Town Plan and Zoning Commission. And we do have that on our table as we walked in tonight. We have the updated information, folks. We're in receipt of the resignation of Tom Gill. I'm looking at the wrong one, I think, so let's see. Yeah, okay. We have 2 motions in our packet.
His letter was requesting his resignation from both the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. All right, Counselor Menke?
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of Thomas Gill from the Town Planning and Zoning Commission in accordance with email communications received April 25th, 2023, and effective on that date.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on these? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then we also added an appointment, I believe.
We have another.
Oh, there's 2, sorry. I just think they were all
Resolved
together.
that the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of Thomas Gill from the Board of Parks and Recreation in accordance with email communication received April 25th, 2023, and effective on that date.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Annis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimously. The Permanent Municipal Building Commission. Which makes sense now because those resignations needed to happen. Got it. Counselor Menke?
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointments. Thomas Gill, Public Trades Member, 66 Highland Street, Party R, 4/25/2023 to 11/30/2024.
Is there a second? Second by Counselor Nagel. And discussion. Counselor Menke?
I would just point out that even though his party is R, this is not a Republican appointment. This is a large appointment. So this is, as you recall, there is one Democratic appointment, one Republican appointment, and 3 at-large appointments. This is one of the at-large appointments.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Any other comment or question? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Where are we at with the appointments on that commission now?
Now at 3 members. The third trade member I spoke with, wasn't sure that he would be able to manage that with his workload. He was checking with his wife. So I'm
Smart
hoping to
man.
hear back from him, but we may see him come back in another format at some point, but we are still looking for that third member.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next item this evening is the approval of refunds. Deputy Mayor Bedrego?
Resolved that property tax refunds in the amount of $7,980.42 are hereby approved in the individual amounts and for those named on the request for refund of an overpayment of taxes certified by the revenue collector, a list of which is attached to this resolution.
Is there a second? Second by Counselor Nagel. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Yeah. Next item is approval of the minutes. We have several before us. We have special meeting of March 25th, public hearing minutes for the Gold Star parents from March 28th, public hearing meeting minutes of the low-income veterans exemption from March 28th, 2023, regular meeting minutes from March 28th, 2023, public hearing minutes regarding the budget from April 4th, 2023, and regular meeting minutes for April 4th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion to accept those as written.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor
Whoa.
Menke and seconded by Counselor Annis. What just happened?
We switched around.
Dave,
I
Dave's,
thought that was your job.
I do
Corrections.
have something to
Yes.
mention. I've looked them over and I was not here on the 28th. So I would abstain from those minutes, even though I realized that I could vote for them, even though I wasn't there. But for transparency, I will abstain for any of the March 28th meetings. For the others, I'll approve of.
So then perhaps we should separate those motions.
Okay.
All right, so would you rescind your
I
motion?
would be happy to rescind my motion.
Will you rescind your second?
Rescind my second.
Thank you. So we'll break that up and the first motion I'll entertain is for the March 25th, 2023 special meeting minutes.
I would move acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on March 25th special meeting minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then I will entertain a motion to accept the March 28th, 2023 public hearing Gold Star parents, March 28th, 2023 public hearing low income veteran exemption, and March 28th regular meeting minutes.
I would move acceptance.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on content? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any, and one abstention. So motion passes 8 affirmative, 1 abstention. Next item, let's see, we're continuing on with a motion to approve the April 4th, 2023 public hearing minutes for the budget and the April 4th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
I would move acceptance.
I second.
Has been accepted.
Sorry.
Seconded, sorry.
You go away for a week and.
Hey, lose your job.
All those, any,
Practicing for 4 days.
It's a coup.
Without me.
we have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion on those? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We have all of those minutes accepted. We are on now to new business. And the first item, I just need to flip a few pages here, is the appointment of the auditor.
And Janet's with us.
Janet is with us. All right,
Yes,
welcome,
I'm
Janet.
here. This is not really too exciting. We went out to RFP, as the members on the committee know. We only got one response. So we're sticking with the auditor we currently have, Clifton Larson, who used to be formerly Bloom Shapiro. And this is our annual appointment of auditors that we need to be able to send this information to the state.
There's a draft resolution that we'll be looking at taking action on at our next meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Councilors, do you have any comments or questions for Ms. Murphy? Counselor Page?
Quick question. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but can you, Janet, just expound on, so residents know, are there cost implications with only having one person to go to? And are there any, do we have to do diligence? I know you do diligence, but to try to beat the bushes and find a competing bid, or is it not relevant because it's not an issue of cost per se? Are there standard fees there that we would incur regardless of the vendor or the auditor?
It does limit us because when you only have one, that's the only price you can go with. But unfortunately, I've been talking to other towns, and what we're finding is just audit companies are not looking to take on new towns.
Okay.
They've got a shortage of employees. They can't get staff. We were even finding with our current auditor that we have that they had problems. There was a lot of staffing change within their companies, and making sure that this year we had all new staff compared to last year. So there's a lot of turnover going in this industry, and that's why I think we're not seeing anybody to bid to take on new towns. I think they're just trying to stick with the ones that they have.
Okay, all right, thank you. You just worry when there's only one person. in
Yeah,
one
we're
game.
gonna be looking to try to, as we go to more meetings and stuff, talk to some of those accounting, the other firms that go to some of our GFOA meetings and stuff to see what's going on, so that the next time we go out, we can kind of give everybody the heads up, please, go in. We're not stuck on one. We want to see more than one offer.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Comment or question? And then you're still on with us for the next one, which is the budget transfers.
Yes, so I'm looking to get some funding for 3 separate projects. The first one I want to talk about is the senior center window replacement. We got a grant, partial grant for this, and that was in March of 2021. So that was over 2 years ago we got that. We have since then, this past year, gone out to bid for it, and we found that the cost of it significantly increased, along with the fact that we now have some asbestos removal that needs to be done. That being the case, we are looking to transfer $260,000 to try to get this project completed. The majority of that money is coming from vacancies that we have in certain salary positions. If you'll notice, I'm looking to take the money from the salaries from facilities, some money from heating fuel where we came in favorable, the salaries from the information technology department, salaries from town clerk, and to transfer over money we have left in a CIP account for the senior and disabled HVA replacement.
Okay.
So that was the first one. The second one that we're looking to do some transfers for is road reconstruction. During the budget time, I know you heard our highway director discuss the fact that the rising cost and all the miles of roads we want to do We're going to fall short because of the fact the bid came in so much higher from Tilcon than it had in the past, just a huge jump. This is a way we're looking to move 200,000 over to road reconstruction to try to shorten that gap a little. During budget times, he did say it could be as much as $600,000 we'd fall short to be able to do all the roads we want to do. So this is a small way to try to make it up. I sat with Rob Hillman from Highway Department and went through his budget. The majority of this is from his budget, along with a salary variance that we have within the town managers, and our local elderly tax relief program came in much. We didn't have as many participants again this year as we had in the past. So that's the $200,000 we want to move into that account.
Okay.
And the last project we're looking for is the highway garage, to start doing out some planning and reviewing and get some design work done to start looking at this. The other portion of it was something we had in CIP that I know during budget time was discussed about taking out the ARPA funds. But all of these accounts that we're looking for transfers are currently within the CIP account, and our projects have been completed and the money is no longer needed for those projects. So we're looking to clean those up and move all of those over to try to cover, start work on the highway and parks garage design and review. And the total on that one was $80,859.
Okay. Well, you're really taking advantage of every penny that we have built in there, anything that's left, right?
Yeah, no, I'm looking in the couch seats. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your efforts on this. I know when Mr. Hillman came forward, especially about the roads, we were all a bit concerned. So I'm glad we're at least trying to, meet him there with some of the.
Yeah,
funding.
we met and went through his operational budget and said what you can give, and we were lucky enough that we had a very tame winter. And a lot of that money was still available.
Okay. Any council comment or question? Councilor Page?
This budget, there's no shifting of monies from column A to column B.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
These are standard. We do these every year. That's not on the council. You always move money at the end of the year. In the middle of the year and at the end of the year, we kind of move money as we need it.
Councilor Rada?
I just want to thank you, Janet, for checking under those couch cushions and coming up with options and resources that we can shift. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. We just so you know, for the senior center windows, we looked at that and we thought we could do it in phases, but I think we need to prove to the state that we can finish a grant that they gave us. So we didn't want to do it in phases. We want to get this one completed in full.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep. Any others? We're good. All right, we'll move that to our next agenda for consideration. And then we also have this evening the ARPA funds allocation for the Clem Lemire turf fields.
I know Bill is here for this one also, but during budget discussions, we had talked about using the ARPA funds to be able to do the $600,000 that was cut out of the CIP for the turf field. This has been something we've been looking to replace for a while. I'll let Bill talk a little bit about the timeline, but we moved this up by itself because timing is kind of important to try to be able to get this project done and in before the beginning of August. So Bill, if there's anything you want to add?
Yeah, this will be a minor miracle if we can pull this construction job off on June 17th, when the 110 soccer teams leave Newington and lacrosse is finished. We need to bring the construction company in and redo the field by August 1st, so youth football and soccer can start again on the field. So I've got a very tight window here to work with, and I'd appreciate your help if you can move this forward. We're going to notify the company down in Georgia upon your consideration, and then we'll try to make this thing happen for Newington.
Okay, yeah, great. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko?
No, I support this and, voted for it, and it's not a problem, but these are just some general questions I have. Will we be expecting either an RFP or a bid waiver on this?
No, this falls under the category of state bid already. So the company has a state bid number, and we've identified that and given it to both purchasing and the finance department.
Okay.
And Gail, just so you know, this company that is replacing the field is the same one that put it in.
Um,
And this is probably a $3 million field, and we're just taking up the green grass, the rubber and the sand and recycling it and then bringing in new top coat. So the subsurface and the drainage in the frame around it, hopefully will all be good.
Will this be good? Okay, that's, I guess, goes to my second question. And again, don't worry, I'm in favor of this, but this has been a topic of discussion for, a long time. And I think, you've been, by the way you've been maintaining it, it's great that it's lasted 12 years when it was only supposed to last, I guess, 8 years. But my question is, so this artificial turf, and this is just, for me, I'm just trying to figure this out. So every 8 years, we can expect like an $800,000 to $100,000 project. And how does that compare to if we didn't have artificial turf, and what the maintenance would be on a like normal real grass field on a yearly basis? What would the maintenance be versus like every 8 to 10 years being, $800,000 to $900,000 project? Just curious.
Bill, you mind if I just address one thing about the budgeting?
Sure.
Just so you know, every year we've been trying to put away money to replace it so it doesn't hit us all at once. And it's been something that's taken the hit every year. And now it's catching up with us. So it's not that we didn't look to try to put the money away. And that's why I'm trying to get us into the habit of doing, is putting it away so it doesn't be 1 year big hit like it is this year, $800,000 project.
No,
So
I understand.
that's something I think we need to just keep in our mind as we go forward to budgeting, to try to put that little bit away instead of taking a big hit all in 1 year.
But if it was just normal turf field, how much would it cost per year to maintain? And I guess I'm just trying to.
That's a question for Bill.
Yeah, I don't know if you're saving a lot of money. You save probably $50,000 to $100,000 a year, probably off the top of my head. But really what you're gained by artificial turf is it's used threefold. So we would only put, a soccer game every, 2 hours, and then if it's, you give it the grass some rest, the natural grass. We just program this thing from 7 in the morning to 11 at night, and it's under the lights, and we beat the heck out of it. So you can't use the field at Clem Lemire, the field that we do at Clem Lemire on natural grass. So you don't gain as much money as you do playability, if that helps you.
Oh, that makes, okay, that makes more sense. And then just one more thing you mentioned, I didn't realize that there's like this undercoating or whatever that you're not replacing, but at some point, will that have to be replaced?
It's not likely, Gail. I think we just did an engineering test about 3 months ago, and it drains 40 inches of water an hour. So it's well done. Whoever built it in the beginning did a great job. There's probably 12 to 24 inches of stone base with herringbone drainage that goes all the way to the outside. So we're pleased with what we found underground with some test holes.
Super. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Rado?
Yeah, I think, Bill, that you just answered this last question that Gail had, which was pretty much my question. You said that with the 3 layers that are going to be removed and replaced, that hopefully nothing else will be replaced. So my question was, if there needs to be other parts of those fields replaced, any idea what that additional cost might be? And I know it's probably a hard question to answer.
Yeah, we only anticipate maybe 1 or 2 truckloads of processed stone. We feel very confident, and the company feels very confident that we're getting into this solidly. We don't anticipate that problem at all. The only thing that could happen is if the concrete border around the edges, if there's any broken piece that we can't see underneath, but that will be a very minimal amount.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll move this to our next agenda for consideration. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, guys.
Now we are on to discussion of the sale of town-owned property. Do you want to give a history on this? I see Attorney Ancona's with us as well.
So we received a request from an individual regarding the purchase of what is a former stub road
Mhm.
in order to allow for access onto a town road to create development. We really don't have a process in place for it. We've done small little purchases. We've looked at other things as well. But we need to have something in place to say, how are we going to handle this? Are we going to address the property, allow the assessor to place a value onto it, and then offer it to neighbors? Are we going to put it out as a bidding process, sort of what we do with a tax lien sale, where bids come in, we open them up, we determine the highest bidder on the property? We need to have that sort of conversation. So back in, I believe it was 2020 and in 2021, Attorney Ancona had put together sort of a draft sale of town-owned policy, which is really nicely laid out and quite specific. So I'll let him address that specifically. But the attorney for that parcel for the owner has been pushing a little bit for this. And I said, we need to make sure that we have the correct process in place first. So I will leave that to the discussion with the town attorney and yourselves to see
Okay.
where we go with it, but I'm happy to join in when necessary.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome, Attorney Ancona.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello, everyone.
There you go.
Hi.
Do you want to go ahead and kind of review
Yeah.
what you've done for us?
So we've addressed this, I think, a few times at this point. We seem to continually go back to tabling it because I think the consensus at the time or each time was that sometimes it hamstrings the municipality into a certain process that might not always be advantageous. I think during my tenure, we've acquired more property, I think, than we've sold, like I think New Samaritan, if I recall, 10 acres on the mountain, if I recall that also, and a couple other projects. But I think that the demand at this point is there are an awful lot of pieces of property in town. James called them stub roads. I tend to call them paper streets. And a lot of the pieces of property don't really have pure title or traditional title. They are assumed to be owned by the town, but sometimes or oftentimes when I do a title search, we're not quite sure who owns the property. But in any event, you guys commissioned me some time ago to see if I could come up with something that would be workable. I just noticed in the draft ordinance that I did a few years ago, it does have an exemption. Some things I'd like to upgrade or update, like personal property, sales of personal property having a value of less than $100. I don't know, the town manager might find that to be fairly confining. That's a small number. But in any event, it would be a process whereby somebody could come in and bid on a piece of property, or the town has a piece of property that would be more advantageous to put back on the tax rolls than to have it just sitting there. So that's what this entails. And I'm not sure which way you guys might want to go about it.
Okay. I'm going to open it for discussion. And this may be one that we have to talk about for a while. I don't know that this will be resolved in one meeting either.
Yeah.
I know this has come forward a few times. I was just looking at that language, the $100 language, and that may be an area to look at too, in terms of if it's a smaller sale of property, do we want to allow it to kind of go through easier than?
That's personal property.
Right.
Oh, personal, right. Okay.
Would that be like for buying a town vehicle or something?
Yeah.
Or selling a town vehicle, yeah.
Okay.
Surplus.
Or a surplus
To go-
computer or a
yeah.
laptop or.
Surplus computer laptops.
So, yeah, we need to look at that for sure. Number 90.
Yeah. I just saw this, so I'm kind of trying to process this as we go along here, but I think if there is a stub road or a paper road or street, we would need to offer it sort of to the people in the neighborhood, so that not just one person would be able to avail themselves of this purchase, but the neighborhood could avail themselves of this purchase. I don't, if it's just a piece of, a road right away, that's probably not buildable, but it may lead to something that's buildable that behind it or adjacent to it. So I think we'd have to be careful that we allow everybody who lives next to one of these pieces of property to make an offer to acquire it if they want, not just fixate on one bidder.
Okay, so like a right of first refusal, essentially?
Almost like, I guess I'm envisioning some kind of a zoning sign. This property is for sale. If you're interested, contact the town clerk's office and they can tell you, you can make a bid on it. But it would just be for that property, Matt. So if there are two neighbors that were on side of this paper street, if they both wanted to make a bid on it, they could do that, or they could both buy it and then split it down the middle and both have increased their yard size, I guess is.
Okay. Counselor Page?
Can you just say more, Attorney Ancona, what the problem is that we would be solving with this? Because I don't know the history. I know when you drafted this, apparently in 2 or 3 years ago, I guess there was a problem that was under consideration. Or do we have a problem, and would this solve that? How would this solve that problem, or would it create more work for our town staff unnecessarily, or for us to make decisions about appraisals and disposition of lands and so forth?
Well, Counselor, thank you for asking that, because I think that was the stumbling block that we faced a couple of years ago, where oftentimes, sometimes, not oftentimes, many times when we do things as a governmental agency or entity, we tend to create problems that we don't foresee. And in this particular situation, I can actually foresee a problem where the highest bidder may actually not be a good person to own a piece of property adjacent to somebody else's land.
Agreed.
So I'm not sure that adopting such an ordinance is a good idea. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just not sure we have a pressing issue that needs to be resolved. I think I'm answering your question.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Thank you, Attorney. And I just had to do some homework on this because didn't know about this, but and from my read, and you can help me understand if I'm right or not, the Connecticut State Statute, Section 7-163E, seems to cover some of this anyway, right? Municipal requirements for public hearings and so forth around, is it real property? And I wasn't sure, are we entering the domain of the Department of Redundancy Department by creating another layer of municipal language?
Yeah, that's correct, Counselor. Anything over $10,000 requires a public hearing. And of course, we have oversight from TPZ already in place, for H-24. So again, although I put this together and I like it and all, I'm just not sure it's something we need. And that's my personal opinion. We handle these on an ad hoc basis, but sometimes ad hoc is not always a bad thing.
I mean, I have other questions, but we sometimes look forward to, especially after budget season, or earlier evenings. So I can certainly, if it's okay, forward these to our town attorney for consideration.
Oh, that's up to you. If you're comfortable with that, if you want to discuss tonight, that's what we're here for, whatever.
Okay, I mean, you've already addressed several of these, just looking at how this may potentially unintendedly tie the hands of our town manager or council. And do we want to get into all the more nuanced decisions about, do we go with an appropriate development consistent with the mission and vision of our town, or do we go with the high bidder? What are the implications for other properties, be they a demolition, for example, of a town hall, and anything of value there that the contractor may want to utilize for recycling and benefit from that in a deal that we would make with them? Does it tie our hands with that, or making donations of certain properties that we would afford the town manager discretion in donating to worthy nonprofits. I mean, there are layer upon layer of potential problems that it might tie up. So I know those are a lot of questions, just lingering.
No, those are good thoughts, yeah. Yeah. Counselor Annis?
We conveyed the property on Fen Road. We had no issues with it. We were able
Right.
to, and the prospective buyer came to us to ask us, and that went very smoothly.
They did.
So, yeah, so I think something like this would tie our hands and put another layer to trying to negotiate. And, I know we had like some small triangular pieces that we're trying to sell that nobody wanted to buy because they were just totally landlocked and they wouldn't benefit anybody. But I personally think, and I remember our discussions previously on this, that it does tie the council's hands, the town manager's hands, and staff hands more so. It gives more restriction.
Census last time, and just by example, who just didn't want that buyer to have the piece of property. Then what happened?
Exactly, right.
Where it made sense to sell it to that particular person for their need for it and use for it.
Right.
Right.
Which benefits the town, right? As a whole.
Exactly.
Counselor Rada?
Yeah, I have a few questions which I will forward to you that have to do with designating regulations, restrictions on all of this. And I don't want to take up our time tonight to do that, but I do have one question. We're reading that we've been presented with several requests in previous years for purchase of land. At this point in time where this is being raised, how urgent is there, or how many requests are we looking at the moment?
At the moment, there's the single. So they have been very animated in contacting just to see where we're at in the process. Previously, what's come before you, of course, was the Fen Road parcel. Prior to that was the request along Stam Road for access out on the Stam Road from the individual, which we actually discussed as a possible easement and ended up not going forward under TPC review. So in addition to those and the conversations we had previously, we've been looking at putting together an inventory of town-owned land and getting some of those back onto the rolls, specifically the ones around the golf course. We've got a lot of little open lots that are everywhere that if we can either sell those in a grouping or individually around the towns, we could see some more development that's available for us. So that's one of the reasons that this came forward to the council again, just to confirm if we're fine with the process we utilized under the Fen Road transfer, which I still don't agree with how the person wanted it to go, but that's another issue altogether. I still don't think we own it. But if that's the process that the council is comfortable with, where they make a recommendation to us, we bring it forward to you, you recommend the TPZ, TPZ gives us our report back, and from that point we move forward. I'm fine following that process.
And the way you're describing sounds to me case by case.
Usually it will be in a case-by-case basis, but of course, just like anything else, it would just start with a request for sale to the town manager's office, and it would be referred to you as the referring body to TPC.
Thank you.
Counselor Donahue?
I mean, we've been fortunate where, the land we've sold, only one person has wanted it.
Correct.
Right? If you're gonna sell something that abuts multiple properties, like Councilor Mankey said, how do you say you can have it, but you can't?
And believe it or not, that's actually at issue with this parcel. So the way this parcel works out, it actually fronts on 4 separate parcels on the sides. So effectively, we could have to offer it to 4 individuals and they could all split it up into little tiny pieces.
And if you've irritated your neighbor,
they may want to buy it just for that reason. Correct. Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a concern where I don't want to, have somebody, I want to buy this, and then we agree to it, it passes TPZ. And because people aren't always informed, all of a sudden they say, well, why wasn't I offered this?
And that's part of the other part of the discussion.
But I think that goes back to the original thought of there's a specific request from someone who needs it for a very specific person.
Correct.
To make their land usable. versus just the guy next door who wants to extend by 2 feet, or, you know,
Right. Oh, yeah.
whatever the case may be. So I think that's where we get stuck often. Counselor Menke?
Yeah, I just would point out, the land we're talking about selling is not open space. It's not developable space by the town, or you can't make a park out of it. There are pieces of road that kind of got left, land that was planned for a road and kind of got left off because they didn't build. And so it's just sitting there. It's not land we can envision as open space because it's a road.
Well, but in this particular case, yes, but there are other.
There are more
areas in
parcels
town that are true parcels.
Right, then
That we
that'd be a
own
different
and may
thing,
want to
right.
sell in the future. So it would be both.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Deputy Mayor Draco.
Yeah, I guess now I'm starting to get a little uncomfortable. First of all.
Sorry.
You're welcome.
Open space, yeah. But also, you know, relevant to what Counselor Menke said, who's it, you know, who's gonna be the judge of that? Well, I mean, if I wanna buy, if I'm part of a budding parcel, and, you know, my neighbor has a use for it, but I kind of, you know, I like that open space or whatever. I mean, why, who's to say that my desire is not as valid as somebody who wants to build a driveway, or maybe I want to buy it to buy a shed or whatever. And also, how am I supposed, if somebody's, you know, doing it because they needed access or right away, yeah, you know, good for them. They go and they do the research, whatever, but still is like, you know, Councilor Donahue said, it's like, I didn't even know that the who owned the property and it was for sale. I mean, I think there's an awful, before we start just selling stuff off, because we make a decision that somebody needs it. And, you know, there's a lot of area here that I'm not comfortable with, because actually I was put in this situation with my property. But the lawyer for the woman who owned the property, he did notify all abutting property owners. And as it turned out, I was the only one that really made a bid on it, but I would have been a little upset if somebody had bought it and stuck their boat or something there. And secondly, you indicated that there's a lot of little lots around town for sale. I mean, that we own. I mean, I don't want to see a fire sale going on either, because I think before we put these, who makes a decision to put these up for sale? I would want certainly the Open Space Committee or this, or us as a town, to decide whether or not we're going to offer it for sale or not. I'd like to see the size and the location of where these properties are before we start doing anything.
Oh, yeah. No, they were,
Nothing could happen until
No.
it would have to come before this body.
yeah, because you
At
would have to
minimum.
make the referrals to TPZ. So
Right.
if you determined that that parcel better fit into a trail system,
Okay.
open space area that's adjacent to a park,
Okay.
adding it into, say, Indian Hill,
Mhm.
those lots are adjacent to it. If that was your decision, you wouldn't be moving that forward to a TPC referral.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Page?
You've really just addressed my concern. I was gonna also say that when I heard about a little patch here, a little patch there, granted, you know, we don't have a lot of open space, and you may think, well, a little patch of, you know, 1/10 of an acre may not mean much. But I think to our public participation comment earlier about trees around a gas station, you know, though it may be a small patch, and it sounds like they have the legal right to do it, so I'm not saying that. But if we can keep some of those little patches, it's reassuring to know it would have to go through a process, if nothing else, for some buffer between either a commercial and then a residential, or just to have a place for the birds to hang out and have a little bit of tree left and grass. So that's just a relief to hear. Thanks.
Counselor Ennis?
Yeah, just really quick, Gil, didn't Open Space many years ago have a map of what properties the town owned? Like, and there was little pockets, little pieces,
Yeah, we have a,
and there was a discussion that maybe some of those should just be designated as open space and not go out in the market. So I think that might be a conversation to have, you know, along the way. So somebody won't come forward and say, I want to buy this little piece, but the town really wants to keep it as open space.
And we recently relooked at that, but it sounds to me that you're speaking a little bit, but there's more that maybe never even made it onto that list because maybe they were small or, you know.
we have quite a few paper roads.
Yeah, those
The
never made it. onto
Home
the
Gardens
list.
is a perfect example of it. A lot of little stub roads that never got connected in, but the abutting residents have now used them for parking boats or creating a garden. Or we've had some instances where MDC has actually put drainage through them because they are an approved road area. So there are small instances where we'll have to look into the details to make sure that it's not going to impact something else that's in the area.
And I think this is brought forward because of a specific request. This isn't us saying we want to sell off all these
No.
slivers, all that's kind of where we're going here, but you know, just the reality is that we do have these little slivers, but then we do have other bigger parcels. So we have to take both into consideration when we're talking about the policy, but. All right, so counselors, where do we want to go with this? Do we want to just kind of process a little more, do a little more research, think about it and discuss at another meeting? Do we want to bring it forward to the next agenda for further discussion?
I think we can continue discussing it. I think there's a lot of impact here. I think we need to kind of digest it.
Yeah.
Okay. So in addition to that, are you comfortable with me getting a formal request from the individual and having that as a process to transfer over to TPZ for review? Or do you want to wait for the discussion to continue?
I think I'd wait to the discussion to continue.
Yeah,
We have
I
a
agree.
plan.
It abuts 4.
But 4 parcels in a very weird way, yes.
I would say I don't disagree with that, waiting for further discussion. But I would also say that maybe as a default, pending the outcome of our further discussion, that we invest a certain trust in our town manager but also obviously in our TPZ process, and that may end up being the process that handles it. Yes, the non-policy process that we have currently.
It's just hard to say yes if we don't know if we're going to go forward with the policy or not, right?
No, I got you. So I agree. We need to discuss it.
Yeah, but that referral is for them to review the possible sale. So if it were to come back and you decided that you didn't want it, even though they approved it, you could override that with a 2/3 vote.
Right.
But it gives us the opportunity for them to at least take the time to review that while we're still having that discussion. It would be introduction at the next meeting, so it wouldn't have any action to it. So we wouldn't even be discussing any possible action until May 23rd.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable waiting till we have this in line. Once we send a request to the TPZ and they approve it, now it makes it more difficult for us to say, oh, no, we don't want it.
Right.
We want to change it, or we want to use our new policy that wasn't in effect when I went to TPZ.
Right.
I think
It muddies the waters a bit, yeah.
I think it makes it more confusing.
That's fine.
I agree.
I want to be able to
I understand,
address that with the
whoever's
attorney.
interested in this property is interested in it, but I'd rather make sure we look out for the interest of the town more than in one individual. And in the meantime, I think if Attorney Conan wants to look it over and make some changes, mentioned a couple of changes he would make. That's fine too, and just get it back to us. But I think I'd rather have either this or have us decide that we're not going to use this. We're going to use something else, or not use anything, but have a at least consensus around this table of what we're going to do before we go ahead and start the process, and then find out we don't want to start the process.
Deputy Mayor Draco?
Yeah, I'm irrespective of this, whether this process or we put this ordinance in. And I know it can't come out, but I'd like to know, or if I were a neighbor, I would like to know what the use is of this particular property if it gets sold. Because I still think there is an impact. If it's going to be a driveway, if it's going to be just a right of way, if it's going to be, how are the abutting neighbors going to be made aware of the fact that there's a potential for some type of impervious pavement or something going on to that piece of property? I do think that it's not like, well, it's not like, well, it's just like cutting down the trees. It's my property. I can do whatever I want. At this point, it isn't their property. It's town property. And if we're aware of something going in that could possibly satisfy one neighbor, but not satisfy the additional 4 or 5, I think we have a responsibility to those 4 or 5 who don't even know the property is for sale. I'm just kind of uncomfortable with this.
Yeah, and as you know from sitting at TPZ, they would still go through that entire site review. So I can tell you that they are looking at a single family home there with a driveway coming out of that parcel proposal. So that entire parcel that they currently own is landlocked. So this parcel would allow that to come out to the main roadway, which is the town road, giving them frontage for the development. Believe me, we've looked at a multitude of layouts. So it could be that this owner takes some, this owner takes some, this owner takes some, this owner takes some, but this guy decides he wants to sell his. So now he's got his frontage to be able to create a small right of way within the 25 feet that he could buy out of the 50-foot stub paper road. There's a lot of different opportunities and ways that it could fall. We don't know which way it will, but that's the purpose of this whole conversation.
Okay, Counselor Retta?
Yeah, one question and one comment. And Attorney Ancona, maybe you could research some of this. What are we seeing, or what's happening when this issue arises in any of the other towns, for example, in Wethersfield or Berlin? And second is just a commentary. We're talking, you have a clear view of what this item is. Right now, we're talking in the abstract, and I don't feel comfortable without knowing anything more specific. That might mean in an executive session, I don't know, but I think it's difficult to, I agree with Councilor or Deputy Mayor Budrako that I would like more information, because I feel that there can be much greater impact to the community and to our open space and to neighboring parcels without knowing something more specific. I feel like we're being asked to make decisions in the abstract where we need something more concrete.
But I think there's two different issues here. So one issue would be if the property, if we end up moving forward with trying to sell that property, then that would be perhaps executive session to start out with, to fact find or figure out that piece, then bring it into public session. But then this issue is different. This is just policy. So this is regardless of that parcel, the town sale.
I'm sorry.
She's always listening. The town sale of property for all possibilities. So it is in the abstract right now in terms of this particular agenda item, because it is the sale of any possible property. So we have to think in the abstract about anything it could mean for us. The other piece though would be more specific.
Yeah, and for me, it's a lot to wrap my brain around, and that's why I guess I'm suggesting that we look at ordinances.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or policies in other towns.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to show you the mapping, which gets confusing, but.
We don't, yeah.
No, I see it. Okay.
On this, because I don't think on this,
Next meeting.
on this sale is still private, so I don't think we need to see this.
Right.
This is just policy, not
Yeah.
This is,
property.
you're right. I think you're right. We're confusing the two. There's policy and then
We have
there's,
to separate.
and then there's, and we aren't we really aren't considering this parcel. We're considering the policy at this point.
Counselor Nagel?
I believe it comes down to that this particular development that's happening and any in the future, and because of the size of properties variance that this would come under, that each is a unique problem within itself or a unique situation within itself that you really can't handle in the abstract, that you need to look specifically at what is there, and also to realize you can't make everyone happy all the time. So I think we're at the point where we're going to go round and round and round. We need to find out a way of doing it that at least will give the opportunity for us all to look at it individually, or is that really the province of TPZ as opposed to us? And it's a quandrum. I don't have an answer. This seems to be where we are and what we're stuck on.
I guess as we've gone around and around, I've come back to Attorney Ancona's point of view that sometimes a policy sticks us into a policy that we can't adapt.
Less is more.
And there might be sometimes we want to adapt what we sell or not sell, or how we sell or not sell it. And maybe a case by case basis is sometimes better than having a policy, well written by Attorney Ancona, of course, but a policy that now we're kind of pigeonholed into, and we have no recourse but to follow that policy. So I kind of came to the point where I like the policy. Now I'm kind of at the point where I'd rather just not have a policy and just take it a case by case basis, and we can, or whoever sits in these seats can decide as on a case by case basis.
Well, and that itself could be a policy.
And a policy could be that we have no policy. But I think we should, for this point, let it ride, and we'll look at it again when.
So we are moving this to the next agenda for further discussion.
I would say that, yes.
And we're gonna look to get some information from other towns.
Right.
We'll check with CCM. They may be able to get us a.
CCM is a perfect resource. Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Ancona.
You're quite welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Good night.
Next item is written and oral communications from the town manager.
Almost.
They added one. I'm sorry, I don't have the amended.
Almost.
Safer grants. So this is for fiscal year, it says
That is correct.
2021.
That is correct. That's when they originally applied for it.
Wow. So the fire department was awarded a grant for staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant in the amount of $45,226. The funds would be utilized for a digital sign to assist in the recruitment of volunteers. I know they want to also use it to inform the public of emergency situations or just things that they deem appropriate. They would be looking, I believe they're looking at company one for the placement. So we, as a council, would need to accept the grant in order for them to officially accept it and take hold of the funds. I will say that the first conversation I had with the commissioner that called me when this grant was, when they were notified of the grant, was that they will have to go through the normal process for that sign, so TPZ, and make sure that they're applying the same way.
Site plan review.
Site plan review, right. So they are aware of that. I made them aware of that. And I know you had that same conversation, I believe.
I did.
With.
Actually, I had it with Chief Traumer as well this afternoon.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I know that was one of the first questions that was raised to me about the digital sign, because that has been a hot topic in the past when they have, certain folks have asked for digital sign. It has not always been as easy as initially perceived, so.
i.e. high school.
So for our purposes, though, we would just need to accept the grant, and then they would go through the process and worry about making sure that everything's in line with what needs to be for TPZ and whatnot.
Correct.
So this would be your resolution.
That'll be
At our
our
next meeting.
resolution at our next meeting, correct?
Yep. And they do have a timeline. Did he give you the?
The timelines actually were not under as much stress. He actually already went on to the government site and did the acceptance of the grant itself. We'll formally accept it so that the finance department can create the necessary accounts for it.
Okay. Okay. So we will move this to our next agenda for consideration. Are there any comments or questions today, though, that we can get answered before that? Okay.
Well, just one quick question. Will we hear from the department? Will anyone be, are they interested in coming before us for a?
They may want to talk about it as part of their presentation. We discussed having them on for vehicles next time. When speaking with one of the commissioners, he's actually indicated they'll be including their building structures as well as part of that presentation to you. So they could address the signage at that point.
There was.
It might be an
He
opportunity.
did talk about it during public
Yeah.
participation.
Deputy Mayor Bedrejko?
I was just curious, since this was applied for, I guess, in 2021, do you know if at that, so the application was, or the grant was specifically was for a digital sign, was, did they get some kind of, they must have had some kind of feelers that this would be approved, because at this point, digital signs really are not something that's readily.
Can't say that they talk to anybody in any of the land use boards. I don't have that information. Unfortunately, it wasn't included in the grant paperwork that was supplied to me either.
Thank you.
They just understand they have to go through the same process, so they could be denied the installation of that sign as well.
All right, so we will move this to our next agenda for consideration. Now, written and oral communications from the town manager.
I only have a few for this evening. So one of them I already touched on this evening with Mr. Hart being here regarding the meeting we held regarding the ACO grant program. We will be getting back together, Rocky Hill, myself, and Weathersfield to discuss possibilities and see if Rocky Hill is actually on board with us. They sort of got it at the 19th hour, so they didn't get a lot of time to review it. So they were taking that information back.
And that
So
was to
hopefully-
review what again, James? I'm sorry.
What was that?
Animal control officer.
Animal control officer.
Sorry, sorry to
Yep,
interrupt.
that's okay. So hopefully we will go forward, even if Rocky Hill doesn't join us. We're hoping to utilize that grant funding for 2 officers. The nice part about that proposed grant program is CROG handles 75% the first year and we handle 25%. So if we put it into the next budget year, we already have more than enough funding between ourselves and Weathersfield to cover both of those. So they'd handle their portion of the 25, we'd handle our portion of the 25, or a total of 25% technically for the 2 for that first year. The second year is a 50%, the third year is a 75, the fourth year, it's assumed that you take it on in a full role, just like we sort of are doing right now with our ACO in between Weathersfield and ourselves. But having that extra funding is a benefit for us and extra coverage. So as soon as we have more information on that, I will bring that back to you. Zipping me. Regarding the wage reopener we talked about earlier, the settlement agreement with ASME has been accepted by both parties. So I'm very happy to report that. We are moving forward as part of the settlement agreement. I will make sure that's supplied to you in your folders later this evening. So last Wednesday afternoon, last minute, we got together and we executed that final settlement agreement. It's been a long time in the making and I'm very happy that it's completed. And we're working to improve how the Parks and Recreation Department members are laid out in their areas. Hopefully we'll eliminate a lot of the pay out of classification that we normally see at the moment. Let's see. Camp Ave will be coming back, of course, on May 9th. We'll actually have the consultant as well as Highway Superintendent, Mr. Hillman, present to just discuss the 6 proposals that were part of it. You do have the plan in your shared folder separately at the top of the 2023 folder is Camp Ave. It will be included again as part of the packet for the 9th. I just want to let you know that is coming back to discuss how the council wants to move forward and recommendations that either the highway department or the consultant will have for you. Coming up this weekend, hazardous waste will be taking place at the highway garage on 281 Milk Lane. That will take place between 8 and 1 p.m. On that Saturday. There are quite a few items on it. So if you go onto the our website under the highway department, you can actually click on their web link. It'll bring you into the MDC and you'll be able to pull their flyer and see all the accepted items that will be collected during that time period. Always a good way to clean out our basements. Last but not least, our biannual shredding event will take place on May 20th for the public. That will be taking place between 9 and 12 on that Saturday. Pray for no rain. And that is all I have for you for this evening.
What was the date again? I'm sorry.
May 20th.
May 20th.
A busy day. We'll have the shredding event first, then we can go to the German Club for the May Fest. And then in the evening, there's the fire awards.
I won't be here.
Oh.
I'm gonna miss all that.
Fun events, all right. Next item is council liaison committee reports. Counselor Nagel.
The library board met on 4/10/23. A lot of time has passed since then. They discussed the book sale coming up, which was the 14th, 15th, and 16th. I'm sure I'll have more information about how that went by our next meeting. They also discussed the continual plans for the 5K race, which is coming up next month. At that time, the town is still working on a problem with a small leak in the skylight. It may have been handled by this time. Also, the library has been working on and has developed a legacy handout for people who wish to leave monies if they pass to the library. And also, they are moving along with a lookbook I keep talking about their plans to renovate and expand, and it'll eventually come to us. I don't know how far they've come along since our meeting, but they said they were going to have a refined one by the end of that week. And last but not least, the open problem with many commissions and boards that unfortunately we have in town, there are open board meetings, open board positions on the board. It can contact the library or the head of the Republican or Democratic Party if there are openings that come through them. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Domingo? The Economic Development Commission had a special meeting where the actual developer who has some pretty cool plans for the Keeney manufacturing building. And it was a lot more detailed and a lot more, quite frankly, I don't know, excitement generating than the presentation that TPZ had held several months ago. I think because plans have moved along, the developer, has spent more time in town, been talking to other type of similar projects. So I just want the entire presentation, which really it's worth sitting through. It was like an hour or so, is on YouTube. And I wonder if, James, you can put the link in the minutes, because I think people would have an interest in watching it. Yeah, I mean, I've got it here, but it's not going to mean anything but I can give it to you after the meeting. But if you're interested in what's going on downtown and on the Keeney, it's very watchable, and I think people might get excited about it.
Thank you. Councilor Mankey?
Not one of my committees, but I just report that on my way here, I noticed the flower pots are in the center of town again. So I think as I drove up Market Square, all the flower pots are out and they all have pansies in them and they're looking fine. I think that adds something to our town, at least the center part of our town. So I just report that they're there and take a look at them.
Great. Councilor Page?
Thanks, Mayor. The Open Space Committee met, and part of the work was to review potential criteria and processes for identifying properties that may then move forward with consideration or recommendation for acquisition. It's a complex process, and we're getting guidance on how to sift through the various elements of what constitutes sound criteria for that selection process. And so we'll keep you posted.
Thank you. All set there. We will move on to public participation. Any member of the public who's present may come forward, or anyone online may raise your hand in the Zoom application.
Wrong button.
Okay. You're welcome to come forward.
A lot of that.
Because it's not a formal, I don't think am I wrong about that?
Right. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I can address it for you afterward. I'll let you know.
And May 20th, where was that located for the shredding?
Right in this parking lot.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah, I missed that part. Thanks.
No problem.
Just double checking online.
Nobody there.
Okay. All right, then we will continue on to remarks by counselors. Counselor Page?
I just have one, and I spoke with James earlier about this, just something I'd like to keep on the radar. I know that this council has done a lot with our planner and other folks to consider how we might enhance the historic district around Newington Junction, and that's all good work, and I think we all support it. And there's one property in particular, which apparently is a private property, so they have a right to do with it whatever they wish, per our earlier conversation, at I think 272 West Main, which is a West Hill, excuse me, which is a beautiful old home. And as I've gone by here and there, I've noticed over the last year or two, it looks like it's just becoming a little more tarnished and paint wise and all. And I was just hoping we could just keep it on the radar. I don't know if anything can be done, or we should do something to see if we can work with the property owner to, it's in holding or something, to make that once again, a prettier property in that beautiful historic district. So I just raised that for our, to keep it on the radar, that's all. I just hate to see it go into further apparent disrepair, so.
If it needs the blight issue, we could certainly refer to blight. I don't know.
And I don't, and I'm not saying that to accuse, that, or level that accusation at all. It just seems like it's slowly starting to get a little, and I don't have a complaint at all about that. But again, our hands might be tied, but it's a precious, beautiful, old home. It's a couple hundred years old.
Oh,
Wow,
So,
not many of those.
it is.
really, so I just,
Unfortunately, the paint's coming off of the wood shakes and things of that type. It looks like there's some that has rotted away, so.
Person.
So I'm not calling out.
In our public sessions. I don't love to do that.
and I don't mean to do that at all. It like they're doing anything wrong. I just hope maybe as we consider the historic district, is there something we could do in collaboration to have that be beautiful again?
Councilor Nagel?
I just wanted to add to what Councilor Page was saying, since he's talked about historic homes. Anyone who's gone by the Kellogg Eddy House, the new roof is coming along, clad roof. James, you may want to talk some more about that briefly, but it's coming along nicely, and I'm sure when it's done, it will be really good. And it's the appropriate kind of
It doesn't have foam under it anymore.
roof that should go on that house, and it's a credit to all of us, and thank you for all who was helping to make that happen. Got anything to add, James, concerning that, or?
No, I can just say that the facilities department's been doing a great job with that, making sure that the proper materials are used for that structure. They mobilized as quickly as they could on that to get that done for the spring. So I'm just very happy with how it's looking.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Vidreko?
Related to what Councilor Page was saying, and maybe you can work, I know when, oh my God, how quickly I forget, the previous town planner, Renata was here. When we were working on, getting the plans for the historic loop and blah, blah, blah. There are grants available to help homeowners with maintenance and update. And yeah.
I'm not
so-
sure how that would work on this one. They're actually holding in an LLC. So I'm not sure if they'd be able to apply on it.
If either our grant writer or the town planner can approach, or, in a nice way. And I know Renata had some good ideas on how to approach, because, we didn't want these things designated as a historic district because there's too many restrictions and blah, blah, blah. But there's funds available for people to do painting or whatever. And if maybe somebody can be put in touch with the property owner, if you can work that out. And then secondly, regarding what Councilor Nagel, I saw on Facebook last Sunday, I don't even remember, the Kellogg Eddy House, they had tours, free tours. So just at the last minute, I went, and I had never been inside there. I mean,
Oh,
it's
really?
a nice little like museum or whatever. And the individual Jim Lake, he said that he would be more than willing if any of the council members, if we wanted to have a little meeting that, have a tour, a little field trip, and I don't know, maybe we could even have one of our meetings there or something. I don't know how you can do that, but at least have a little. Yeah, have a little.
Yeah.
Or have a little field trip there just to kind of get us into the whole whatever.
If we had our
Building I was in when I came to town.
Yeah.
The first one was town hall and the second one was where that meeting was.
If we have our meeting there, can we wear period costumes?
Oh, there you go.
You're welcome
Yes.
to.
I want to see you in your leggings.
There we go, right?
All right. No other hands are up. We'll continue on to informational items.
That's the one. Which is Walk This May, the CCHD.
So come on, Newington, we have to get out there and get our steps registered. If you go onto that website, there's a QR code and you can.
It's in our packet online.
It's
They can
super
access
easy,
it.
especially with technology these days. I know I was able to kind of link it to my phone, and when I walk, it would track my steps and kind of automatically report it, and we could get credit for it. And We're really in competition with our surrounding towns. We want to win that golden sneaker award again. So if we're able to, that would be great. As many people as want to register at counters, I would encourage you to share that out on your Facebook pages if you want, if you're so inclined, but we like to get as many people registered and walking and for all the good health benefits, but also because we want the trophy.
Yeah,
So,
if they want it. I see
Nothing
that.
wrong with wanting the
Everybody in the
trophy.
rec and senior center, it's sitting there.
okay, and then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Mankey, seconded by Counselor Rada. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 9:34. Good evening, everyone.